Harish, who's the host? Okay. Can we start?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I've started Prabhuji. Live streaming also started.
Okay, so we'll first of all welcome all the participants for today's third session on life lessons from Bhagavad Gita on chapter 2, part 1, contents of the Gita summarized. So we will begin reciting the chapter, half of it, because it's a very long chapter. So we will recite half of it and then we'll begin the presentation. Just ensure the participants don't unmute themselves or put on their video.
Yes, Prabhuji.
अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः साङ्ख्ययोगः। सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णकुलेक्षणम् विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः। श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन। क्लैब्यम् आस्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते। क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं सङ्ख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन। इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हावरिसूदन। गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्ष्यमपीह लोके। हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान्। न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः। यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः तेव स्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः। कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः। यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्यात् यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम्। अवाप्य भूमावसपत्नवृद्धम् राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम्। सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा हृषीकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तप न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दमुक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः। तमुवाच हृषीकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत। सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे। गतासु न गतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः। न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः। न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्। देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिर्धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति। मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदाः। आगमापायिनो नित्यास्तांस्तितिक्षस्व भारत। यं हि न व्यथयन्त्येते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ। समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोऽमृतत्वाय कल्पते। नासतो विद्यते भावो नाभावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तस्त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः अविनाशि तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततम् विनाशमव्ययस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हति अन्तवन्त इमे देहा नित्यस्योक्ताः शरीरिणः अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य तस्माद्युध्यस्व भारत य एनं वेत्ति हन्तारं यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ न विजानीतो नायं हन्ति न हन्यते न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे वेदाविनाशिनं नित्यं य एनमजमव्ययम् कथं स पुरुषः पार्थकं घातयति हन्तिकम् वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शोषयति मारुतः अच्छेद्योऽयमदाह्योऽयमक्लेद्यो शोष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतस्थाणुरचलोऽयं सनातनः अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयमविकार्योऽयमुच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतम् तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युर्ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तनिधनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित् देहि नित्यमवध्योऽयं देहे सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि स्वधर्ममपि चावेक्ष्य न विकम्पितुमर्हसि धर्म्याद्धियुद्धात् श्रेयोऽन्यत् क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतम् सुखिनः क्षत्रियाः पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम् अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम् सम्भावितस्य चाकीर्तिर्मरणादतिरिच्यते भयाद्रणादुपरतं मन्स्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतो भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम् अवाच्यवादांश्च बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यं ततो दुःखतरं नु किम् हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम् तस्मादुत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः
So we welcome the participants once again for this third session of the online course on life lessons from Bhagavad Gita. Today we are doing the second chapter, contents of the Gita summarized part 1 up to verses number 37. Being a very long chapter of 72 verses, we'll split it in 2 sessions. So we also recited half of the chapter. Now we'll do the invocation and then the presentation. ओमज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. So during the talk, any comments or questions you have, please put it on the chat, and then we'll address it towards the end of the session. So already we shared this presentation to you through the WhatsApp groups. Again, after the session also we'll be sharing. So can you see my screen? One of the host can.
Yes, Prabhuji, it is clearly visible.
When I try to maximize, sometimes I face difficulty. So I'm leaving it at this. I hope we'll be able to manage with this much. So this chapter is entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. So as we all know, the chapters are 18 in number. The first 6 chapters are predominantly talking about Karma Yoga, or how to perfect our work. And the last 6 chapters are about Jnana Yoga, or how to perfect our knowledge. And the middle 6 chapters are on Bhakti Yoga, or how to perfect devotion. So when this Karma and Jnana, they supplement Bhakti, they have some purpose. So anyway, this second chapter itself, Krishna summarizes the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, in the sense that he talks about Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So as we saw at the end of the last chapter, Arjuna was indecisive whether he should fight or not fight. But here we see towards the beginning of this chapter, after adding a few more reasons or arguments, he is submitting himself to Lord Krishna and wants his guidance as a guru. Although all along he had been treating Krishna as his family member and friend, at this point he realized that he cannot go further without taking proper guidance from Lord Krishna. But after hearing all these statements from Arjuna as to why he thought he should not fight, Lord Krishna actually chastises Arjuna. Although Arjuna thinks he is very intelligent, in the sense he is able to quote many scriptures, reasons, and valid arguments, but still Krishna finds a defect in his line of argument, and he disapproves his so-called compassion. Why? Because as we will see in this chapter, Krishna talks about the difference between the soul and the body, about the permanent and the impermanent. So there's no point in trying to be compassionate to the body unnecessarily. You have to be compassionate, but you should know the limits of such compassion. And instead, one should be more concerned about the soul, which is the more permanent and eternal factor. And he gives valid reasons also why that is so. But then Arjuna continues to present his doubts and the reason for his confusion. But he is not able to make any decision, and therefore he surrenders to Krishna. At this point, Krishna decides to address this problem at length. So now in this, after this initial discussion, then Krishna instructs Arjuna on the jnana, or knowledge. That is also termed as Sankhya. Sankhya means analytical knowledge, analytical study. And what is the analysis about? This is also said to be confidential knowledge in the sense that people generally overlook this important aspect, which is the difference between the soul and the body, matter and spirit. And therefore, he says, don't lament unnecessarily. Lamentation means you are always feeling that you have lost something or you lose something. So he's saying, don't lament unnecessarily. Why? Because all individuals, the soul, whoever may be, there are unlimited individuals, and they exist eternally. And although the changing of the bodies is quite natural, just like daily we change our dress, although we exist from childhood to old age, we are the same person, our identity doesn't change, but still the bodily coverings, that is whatever dress we change, has been changing. Similarly, the soul is eternal and the bodies are changing quite naturally. One should learn to tolerate the dualities. The dualities means success, failure, happiness, and suffering, profit, loss. And so these are the dualities like the summer and winter season. So what we do, we tolerate them. We cannot try to change the seasons. The seasons are required, otherwise how the fruits and vegetables and all the flowers will grow, which are also required for sustenance. So duality is a necessary aspect of life. So rather than complain about the dualities, we accept them. That is known as tolerance. So that tolerance requires some sufficient knowledge, just like the child is not able to tolerate certain things when he goes to school. But as he grows slowly, he learns to accept them. And therefore, equanimity is the quality, the eligibility for liberation. If we really have to solve problems in life, we should have developed this quality of equanimity. Just like the judge is there, he is hearing two arguments from the lawyers. So if he tends to take side of one lawyer, then he is not going to be able to deliver justice. He should be able to balance both and then come to some conclusion. So similarly, it's a fact of life, there will be dualities, and we should learn to maintain equanimity so that we can eventually solve the problem. That is then Krishna tells the soul never dies. That is the constitution of the soul. Neither it is born nor dies. Whereas the body is perishable. And this is a fact which nobody can change. Even God doesn't change it. So changing bodies is similar to changing the clothes, as I said, the example. Why we change? Because we put on a particular cloth for some purpose, and after it has served the purpose, we have to change for another. So similarly, we accept different bodies because we have different purposes in mind. And once those purposes are fulfilled, naturally we have to change the body to accomplish some other purpose. Supposing you are in the body of a fish, you can swim. But if you want to fly, then you have to have a body of a bird. Or if you want to run on the ground, then you should have a body of a mammal. So these qualities of the soul are eternal. The body also has some eternal qualities. The soul also has some qualities which Krishna will delineate here. So therefore, Krishna says birth and death are inevitable. Actually, for the soul, there is no birth and death, but for the body is concerned, this birth and death is inevitable. And therefore, one should not need lament for the eternal soul, because nothing is going to affect the soul. Even though these changes are taking place in the body, especially the birth and death are the most painful, but still the soul is unaffected. If you see, just like in a dream, we may see some pleasant things or unpleasant things, but once you wake up, it has no value. So similarly, this birth and death are like an experiences we have to go through on a subtle mind, subtle body, but they do not affect the soul at all. Then Krishna talks about the duties of a Kshatriya. So that is on the soul, Swadharma of the soul, Krishna having explained that. Then he is telling now, although your body is temporary, right now you have a body, and that is governed by the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, ignorance, as Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna. Accordingly, you are situated in one of the Varnashrama. Either you are a brahmachari, or that is a celibate, or a grihastha, married, or a anaprastha, retired, or a sannyasi, renounced. This is known as the one of the ashramas. And then another, you have the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, the intellectual class, administrative class, business or agriculture class and the laborer class. So these all divisions are according to the influence of the three modes of material nature. And Krishna points out to Arjuna that he, being a Kshatriya, having acquired those qualities on account of his birth in that family or his training that he has undergone, he has to perform his prescribed duty, and that will give him happiness. Because Arjuna's concern in the previous chapter was, first thing is, I will be killing people. And therefore Krishna says that here, no, you cannot kill the soul, only the body dies, and body will die anyway. And then second argument posed by Arjuna in the previous chapter was, how will I enjoy this kingdom? First of all, I don't know whether I will win. And even if I win, all my family members on the opposite side and my side also will die. So what is the point of putting so much effort for all this? So that was one of his arguments. So therefore Krishna says, if you do your prescribed duty, just like if you are doing a job which has been assigned to you, naturally you will get the reward or remuneration. Instead, if you do some other job, saying that I'm interested in the job, but that was not assigned to you, obviously no one is going to pay you the salary. They will say, okay, you did it voluntarily. So we can't expect any salary for that. At the most, we can give some gift. So similarly, this prescribed duty will fetch the result. For Kshatriya, either he wins the battle and he rules the kingdom, or he dies and goes to heavenly planets. That's how it has been designed. Just like supposing you're an army officer and you die in the process of fighting or something, then you're given full honors, the pension or whatever benefits go to your family, and you're loyally treated even if you died. Similarly, when you're fighting on religious principles as a Kshatriya, the heavenly people, they ensure that this person reaches there. So this Krishna points out, doing prescribed duty of fighting opens door for heaven. Either you live and enjoy the kingdom, or if you die also, you can go to heaven. Just like the chess championship is there. Even the runner-up, he gets some award. It's a sizable amount. So, but by avoiding fight, you will incur sin. So, of course, here we may not be fighting like Arjuna, but by avoiding our prescribed duty, we will be incurring sin. So, what does sin mean? Sin means we go against our nature. Consciously, we know we are acting against our nature. What I'm supposed to do, I'm not doing. What I should not do, I'm doing. So once we do like this, immediately we have consciously one feeling that I am going in the wrong direction. So Krishna says, if you avoid this duty, then you will incur sin, and people will call you bad names, infamy, and criticize you also. And that is not desirable for Kshatriya, because all along you have been glorified, and now if you get to earn a bad name, it's as good as dying or living. Then Krishna talks about the benefit of fight. So as I already told, either you become victorious, again that result is given by the demigods. When you do some activity, whatever result, that is coming from the demigods. So that one result you can get. Or if in case you die also, you will be sent to heaven. So at this stage, we will stop today's discussion, in the sense that after this 38 to 72 verses, we will cover in the next session. So in the previous chapter, Sanjaya was narrating this whole conversation between Krishna and Arjuna and what was happening on the battlefield to Dhritarashtra, the king. And at the end of the first chapter, Sanjaya concluded that Arjuna was not inclined to fight. And that's what Dhritarashtra wanted. Dhritarashtra's first question was, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra desiring to fight? What did they do? Why did he ask that question? First, he thought that this pilgrimage, Kurukshetra, will favor the Pandavas who are on the path of righteousness or dharma. And secondly, because his sons were never followed dharma, they will lose the battle. Or under the influence of the holy place, maybe his sons will not want to fight. Or maybe the Pandavas, under the influence of the holy place, they may also decide not to fight. In this way, war will be stopped and the kingdom will be retained to the Kauravas. So all this was going on in his mind. So after having explained what Duryodhana did, how he went to his teacher Dronacharya, and how Bhishmacharya blew the conch shell and the conch shell was blown by the opposite party, and how there were signs of victory from the beginning. And then what Arjuna did and what Krishna responded to Arjuna's request to place the chariot in front of the army. And then how Arjuna became overwhelmed with compassion and what are the reasons he cited for not fighting. Basically, first he said that he'll incur sin and he will be destroying the family elders, and then that will cause destruction of the tradition, and there will not be any enjoyment. So all this having told, Arjuna was not inclined to fight. So that made Dhritarashtra joyful that Pandavas would be renouncing the kingdom. So in this chapter, Sanjaya, seeing Dhritarashtra hopeful of not losing the kingdom for his sons, began to describe how Krishna inspires Arjuna to fight. So actually, the Lord who is residing in the heart as Paramatma, he is constantly motivating us to do some activity which we ourselves don't want to do. He is giving knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. That we will see in the 15th chapter. How the Lord who is residing in the heart is inspiring every living entity to do what he wanted to do, but he forgot to do. So similarly, Krishna wants Arjuna to fight, and he also knows that the best thing for Arjuna will be to fight. At the same time, here we see Arjuna on his own decides not to fight. So therefore, Krishna will inspire Arjuna to fight. So, this chapter is entitled as Contents of the Gita Summaries because it describes the subject matters of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and also a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga. So these are the three broad topics of this Bhagavad Gita. And in this chapter, Lord Krishna presents an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul. That is known as Jnana or Sankhya. Sankhya means analysis. Jnana means knowledge or confidential knowledge. So working with and without attachment to results. Sakama and Nishkama karma. Some people, to motivate them to do work, we have to promise them some result. Supposing I say I will pay you this salary, and then that becomes the motivation for you to do work. Or if I keep on telling these are the perks or whatever benefits you will get by doing some work, then that becomes the motivation for the work. But for some person, the work itself is the motivation. He is not bothered much about the result. So these two topics are being discussed here. And the characteristics of a person fixed in conception of the real self, Sita Prajna. But still this Sakama and Nishkama, either you do work with attachment to the results, or you do work without attachment to results, both can become an obstacle at some point. We see sometimes people are doing social service, like you see the freedom fighters. They were not doing for any motivation, just for the benefit of others they did, but still they were not liked by people and even killed. So that is the problem with whether you do work without attachment or with attachment. Sometimes the work itself can be the source of a big problem. So therefore, one should realize what is of value, whether really I have to do this work, whether or not I get the result, whether it's really required for me to do this particular work. So that is possible only when one is in the fixed conception of the real. He clearly knows who he is, what he is supposed to do, why he is to do that action. Then that is what Krishna talks about as a Sthita Prajna. Sthita means situated. Prajna means in the knowledge of the self. Of course, that we will not be covering today. Now, Arjuna's indecision and accepting Lord Krishna as a guru. Now, when Arjuna posed all the reasons why he thought he should not fight, then Krishna, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, Karpanyam, Kripaya Vishtam. Kripaya means compassion. Vishtam means full. And Vishidantam. Vishidantam means lamentation. And Ashru Purna Kulekshanam. His eyes full of tears. Actually, a Kshatriya should not cry. But we see, because of his soft-heartedness, he is crying. So, and then seeing this condition, because Arjuna is very dear to Krishna, Lord Madhusudana spoke the following words. Why Krishna is addressed as Madhusudana? Although Krishna has many names, here Krishna is addressed as Madhusudana because he killed the demon Madhu, and that is analogous to removing our doubts. So this Bhagavad Gita will remove all our unwanted doubts. That's what we see at the end of Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna asks Arjuna, have all your doubts been cleared? So unless our doubts are cleared at all levels, subtle and gross, we cannot perform any activity properly, and obviously we won't get the desired results. And even if you get the undesired result, you will not be in a position to accept it. So what is the first problem with Arjuna was he is full of compassion. Compassion is required, but if that is the only driving force, then you cannot do any action. And the lamentation, Vishidantam, that is also a problem. And eyes full of tears. So Krishna thought he has to do something for Arjuna. And now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. But within his heart, Arjuna is crying out to Krishna that, yes, I think I am right, but still I feel something is wrong with me. So please help me. So that is intelligent person. He tries to solve his problem to the best of his ability, but he's also conscious that I need to take help from someone. These are the people who become successful in life. Now Lord Krishna disapproves Arjuna's so-called compassion. Here it says so-called compassion, which means his compassion is misplaced. An analogy is given, just like a person is drowning in the ocean, and you manage to catch hold of his shirt, and you try to pull that person, but the shirt comes in your hand and the body person drowns. Then what is the use? But if you hold on to the person and you lose the shirt, no problem. There are many instances like that. Sometimes you try to save the person, and in the process you have to remove his dress or whatever. Don't mind. So like that, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Here it says Shri Bhagavan. Bhagavan means Krishna has all opulences. Bhaga means opulences. Van means who possesses. Krishna is beautiful. Krishna is famous. Krishna is strong. Krishna is intelligent. Krishna is like this. He has 6 opulences. He is renounced. So when he speaks, it has some authority. So what did he say? Kutastva kashmadam idam. Kutah means where from. And Kashmalam, normally people use this word Kashmala. Kashmalam means Kasmalam, they say. Kashmalam means impurities. What are these impurities? There are impurities in the thinking process. Idam, now at this point, how have these impurities come upon you, and that to a person like you? Vishame samupastitam. Vishame samupastitam means at this critical hour of crisis. Already you are in a problem, and you are aggravating the problem by encouraging these kind of thoughts. And what is the problem? He says, Anarya Jushtam Asvargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. What will be the consequences if you entertain this kind of a thinking? They do not befit a civilized man who values liberation. Anarya means who doesn't know the value of life. People have this problem, Aryan supremacy and all this. But that is not the meaning of Arya. Arya means one who knows the purpose of life. Anarya means who doesn't know the purpose of life. He is not civilized. So he says, Anarya Jushtam. So do not befit a civilized man who values liberation. Liberation means one who is trying to solve the problems of life. And Asvargyam, do not lead to higher planets. Why we have to go to higher planets? Is it not better we continue here itself? There are so many nice places on the earth. No, there are higher planets we have to go because there's the quality of life is better. Just like people go abroad, sometimes they are able to perform better. So we cannot deny that. So similarly, by going to higher planets, you will be able to perform the duties of the soul very much efficiently. So, and Akirti Karam Arjuna, it will lead to infamy. If some people are always criticizing you, you will lose motivation. That is also not good. Klaibyam masma gama partha. Klaibyam means degrading importance. So when a person is capable of doing something, but he is not able to do, then that is Klaibyam. And is Krishna addressing him as Partha. Again, he's telling that you are very close to me. You are my friend. And Klaibyam masma gama partha. That is, do not yield to this degrading importance or cowardice. Cowardice. For Kshatriya, he cannot act like a coward. If you are capable of doing something and you are not able to deliver the result, that is not good. If you have gone on the drama stage and you stop, you cannot perform your drama, or you go to the speech stadium and podium and you are not able to talk, then it's a or you have to give a seminar and you're not able to talk. So it is not good. So, naita tvai upapadyate. This is not suitable for you. Why? Chudram hridaya daurbalyam tekto tishta parandapa. Why it is not suitable for you? First of all, you are a Kshatriya, and not only you are a Kshatriya, you are related to me, very dear to me, and I am expecting a lot from you, and you have all along been glorified by many people. And then Shudram Hridaya Daurbalyam. So why is this? Why are you acting like this? Because of so-called magnanimity. You are thinking you are concerned about the welfare of others, but you don't know what is your welfare or their welfare. So what is the use of being like? Supposing you are giving money to a person who will misuse that. So what is the use of giving that money? So this so-called magnanimity and non-violence. So he's thinking for a Kshatriya to be violent, non-violent is not good. Supposing a policeman is there, suddenly he decides to be non-violent. So what is the use of being a policeman if you are not able to perform your duty? And it's petty, weak. Why are you acting like this? Hridaya Daurbalyam. Your heart has become weak. Why the heart has become weak? Because your heart is preoccupied with unwanted things. Supposing a metal is there, you add some alloy, or sometimes alloy is good, but if you add some impurities to the metal, it loses its properties. Similarly, if the heart is filled with some unwanted things, or you're thinking about unwanted things, then your resolve or determination becomes weakened. So tyakto tishta parantapa. So give it up. He's saying this is unwanted, is kashmalam. You give it up. And parantapa, O chastiser of the enemy. So what is the enemy? Your own doubts, your own mind is your enemy right now, although you are thinking the enemy is in front of you, but the real enemy is the way of thinking. Tyakto tishta parantapa. So Bhagavan, here Krishna, as I said in the beginning, Bhagavan means one who possesses all riches, Aishwarya, Samagrasya, Viryasya means strength, Yashasa means fame, and Shri means beauty. So like this knowledge, Aishwarya, Samagrasya, Viryasya, Yashasa, Shriya, Jnana, Vairagyas. So Jnana means knowledge, and renunciation means when to accept, when to reject. So he has this in full, and only Krishna can claim this. What is the definition of Bhagavan? There is no equal to him or greater than him, and only Krishna could demonstrate all these qualities in fullest extent. So no living entity, including Brahma and Shiva, can possess opulences as full as Krishna. Brahma and Shiva are also great. Brahma has 50 qualities, Shiva has 55 qualities, Narayana has 60 qualities, Krishna has 64 qualities. These are outlined in the scriptures, the gradation. But it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita and Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna is the Supreme Personality God. Vedavyasa has written all the Vedic knowledge. In that the Bhagavata Purana, he has given conclusively that Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And in the Brahma Samhita, where Brahma is also glorifying Krishna, and Aryan is one who knows the value of life and has a civilization based on spiritual values and liberation from material bondage. In other words, Aryan means someone who can solve the problems of life and others' problems. Just like Hitler was there, he wanted Aryan supremacy. Actually, the Aryans were there, they're driven out by Parashurama when he killed all the indisciplined Kshatriyas. But he wanted to bring back the supremacy, and he wanted to adopt the swastika symbol, and totally he had a wrong idea without understanding the spiritual significance. So cowardice is befitting the non-Aryans. If you really know the value of life, you will not avoid certain things which are essential, absolutely. Now Arjuna has further doubts and confusion. First is, how can I counteract in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? Although these have been aggressors, and either they supported the aggressors or they themselves were aggressive, as we saw in the 36th verse of last chapter, aggressor can be killed. But Arjuna argued that even though they have to be killed, but because they are my elders and respectable, I cannot do the same thing with them. But, O killer of enemies, Arisudana, O Madhusudana. In other words, Arjuna is telling Krishna, if it were your father and grandfather or teacher, would you kill even though they did wrong? So how do you expect me to do that? which you yourself will not do. Now, why? Because superior is always respectable and not to be offered even a verbal fight. Even if some of the elders are wrong, even verbally also you should not offend them. What to think about physically? If they are sometimes harsh, it is general etiquette. So that's what Arjuna is trying to reason. Even Krishna will injure only enemies. Arisudana, not his own grandfather Ugrasena or his father or his teacher Sandipani Muni. So why you are asking me to do something which you yourself will not do? So better to live by begging. So what other option do I have? If I cannot fight, the best thing is I take up sannyasa. Instead of being a kshatriya, I go become a sannyasi and beg. Hmm? So bhiksham means bhiksha. Bhikshana means instead of trying to over endeavor for things, you take little from many people and survive. Hmm? So it's better than to kill such great souls, Mahanubhavan, my teachers and superiors, Gurun, though they desire worldly gain. So he himself is saying, what is the problem with them? Indirectly, he is saying that although they are my superiors, they desire worldly gain. Actually, they should not be doing that. No? But he is confused. On one side, he thinks they are my superiors. At the other time, he is saying that they desire worldly gain, which is contradictory. Artha Kaman. Actually, they should be giving it to the juniors, but they want to enjoy at the expense of the juniors. But he thinks if they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with their blood and the sin of killing gurus. How can I achieve this without killing them? We have tried, but it has failed. At the same time, I cannot do this. A teacher would, but the counter argument is a teacher who does an abominable action and has lost discrimination is fit to be abandoned. There are guidelines on when to reject a spiritual master. Although we should not reject a spiritual master and we will not get a bona fide spiritual master if we do that offense, still under certain conditions, we can reject them, especially when they perform an abominable action or they have lost the discrimination. Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance and thus lost their respectability. So Bhishma was a grandfather and Drona was a teacher, a Brahmana. He should not have accepted remuneration from Duryodhana, but out of obligation, they took side of Duryodhana, which they should not have done. Yet Arjuna denied killing them because of his continued acceptance of them as gurus. He is not able to take it out of his mind that these people are fallen from their standard. Sometimes it happens that you are respecting some leader and the leader has fallen from his position, but still out of some sentiment, you are not able to give it up. It happens many times. So I do not know which is better, conquering or being conquered, because if I conquer, I will be killing these people and incurring sin. But if I become conquered, then I will lose my Kshatriya dharma and I cannot survive. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live, yet they are standing. At the same time, even if I withdraw from the battle, these people will come and kill me. So now Arjuna is confused. Should I dutifully fight and risk unnecessary violence, or should I refrain and live by begging? So this shows his detachment. In other words, he is willing to do anything required for the good of others. So that is also one sense right. But then why victory is anyways not certain. There's no guarantee that will come. In other words, he is indirectly doubting Krishna also. Although he took help from Krishna, now at this particular point, his faith in Krishna has reduced in the sense that he is not certain whether victory will be possible. And victory is also defeat. Even if I win, we cannot live happily after killing our relatives. His whole argument is revolving around this point, that me and mine. What about me and what about those who are related to me? And Arjuna's intelligence got bewildered in trying to understand the implementation of dharma. Dharma means something which has to be done, just like it cannot be changed. It is inevitable. But he is not able to understand how to implement it because there are so many principles coming simultaneously. Which principle is more important? Just like if you have to manage time and you have many things to do and time is limited, then unless you prioritize, there's no way you're going to manage the time. Similarly, he has many principles to follow, which is the fundamental principle he is not able to figure out. Therefore, he submits himself as a disciple of Krishna seeking his guidance. So he wants to be disciplined by Krishna so that he can find a solution. So this section talks about how Arjuna surrenders to Lord Krishna. In other words, it's a guiding light for us how to go about solving our problems in life, whom to approach, how to approach, and why to approach. First of all, Arjuna accepts Lord Krishna as his guru. All along, he has been treating Krishna as his family member or a friend, but now he treats Krishna as his guru. Sometimes he say friend, philosopher, and guide. The same person sometimes is a friend, sometimes is a philosopher, sometimes is a guide. So, karpanya dosho pahata swabhava prichami tvam dharma sammuda cheta yatre yasyan nishchitam bruhitan me shishyaste ham shadimam tvam prapannam. So what is a karpanya dosho apahata swabhava? Karpanya means miserliness. Miserly. Dosha means weakness. Apahrata dosho apahata swabhava. I am afflicted. I am acting contrary to my nature because of miserly weakness. A person is able to do properly when he is healthy, but when he becomes weak, he is not able to perform his normal duties. So due to miserly weakness, misery means a person is not knowing the value of certain thing. Miser and Brahmana. Brahmana means he knows the value of thing. Miser means Kripana means he doesn't know value of the thing. Supposing you give a child 100 rupee note, he will simply play with it because he is miserly. So that is a weakness. And Prichamitvam dharma sammuda cheta. Prichami means I ask you. Why he is asking Krishna? Dharma sammuda cheta. Confused about my duty. What is it I am exactly supposed to do right now? I may do many things, I have many options, but what is it I have to do? Yat Shreya Shyan Nishchitam Bruhitan me. Shreya means what is the best and what is, tell me in certain, Nishchitam. What exactly should I be doing? Bruhitan me, to me, tell me. Shishyasteham sadimam tvam prapannam. Shishya means disciple. I am willing to be disciplined. Isti aham shadi mam tvam prapannam. I am a disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Shadi mam means instruct me. The three things are there. I am a disciple, I'm surrendering to you, and instruct me. I can find no means to drive away this grief. He has tried his best to overcome this grief that is afflicting his heart, and he is not successful. What is the problem? Why he is unsuccessful? It is drying up my senses, which means the senses are not functioning properly. He is not able to think properly, talk properly, hear, smell, taste, or touch, or see. Even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom with sovereignty like that of the demigods. Even if you try to motivate me with the result, if I am trying to motivate myself by seeing the results, then also I'm not able to get out of this situation. Supposing a person is very sick and you promise him, okay, after you get out of the sickness, we will do this, we'll do that. He'll say, forget about all that. Right now, I'm really suffering. First, you tell me how to get out of this. So like that, a guru has to be approached to solve the perplexities of life. If you're really serious about solving the problems of life, then you have to accept a spiritual master. Just like you want to attain a PhD or whatever, you have to accept a guide. A guru has to be approached to solve. In other words, there's no option. Especially if you have taken a human form of life, a guru is a must. Guru has to be approached to solve the perplexities of life, because in animal life you cannot solve problems, or even you don't know what is the problem or the solution. But having come to the human form of life, atato brahma jignyasa, and that inquiry you should make to a bona fide guru, and to understand the solution. But there may be many solutions, but unless you understand the solution, you cannot practice it or get the benefit out of it. Now, Arjuna realized that his so-called knowledge, wealth, and material comforts are useless in solving his problems. All along, Arjuna has faced many problems and he was successful in solving them based on his knowledge, his wealth, and his comforts. But in this situation, he understood that this is not going to help him. Therefore, he wants to stop friendly talks with Krishna and become a disciple of Krishna, as he finds no one superior to him. So, the same person, if you change the way you deal with him, the result is different. So this we might have experienced in our life also. The same situation or the same object or the same person, how we utilize them will change the whole uh, perspective. So Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to know that Arjuna was not going to fight. So even it is increasing the morale of Dhritarashtra after hearing all this from Sanjaya. And he thinks that his sons would get the kingdom without fighting. But Sanjaya disappointed him by speaking as follows. What does he say? Arjuna, the chastised enemy, is Parantapa. Now Sanjaya is reminding Dhritarashtra that you are thinking that Arjuna will give up the fighting, but Arjuna is a Parantapa, he will chastise the enemies. And he then, this such Arjuna, he is telling Rishikesha, Krishna who is the controller of his senses and is the master of the senses. Govinda means he gives pleasure to the senses or pleasure to the devotees or the cows. So in this scenario, when Arjuna is a chastiser of the enemy and Krishna is Rishikesha and Govinda, you don't expect something like that. But the point is now Arjuna has said, I shall not fight, and he fell silent, which means he's still thinking about it. He has not really decided. Now Arjuna is called Parantapa because although he was overwhelmed with false grief due to family affection, because he surrendered unto Krishna, the Supreme Guru, he would soon be enlightened and surely fight. So if you have built up some credentials in your life, even momentarily they don't come to your help, eventually you will get the benefit out of it. So Krishna is called Rishikesha, or controller of the senses. Rishika means senses, controller. How does he control? Because he has organized the whole thing. And he knows every detail, because Krishna will now make Arjuna manifest intelligence to fight. So Krishna is present as the Paramatma in our heart, as the external Guru, as the scriptures. Krishna is called Govinda, knower of everything, because Krishna will make Arjuna accept his dharma to fight. So in our case also, Krishna is giving us knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness so that we continue with our life. Now Arjuna's qualification to receive spiritual knowledge. What should be our qualification to receive such transcendental knowledge? He showed Shama and Dhamma, complete control over his mind and senses. Although his mind was going in different directions and his senses also temporarily they become weak, still he did not lose control over them because he is able to logically present his arguments and to Krishna and seek a solution and willing to accept that direction. So Shama and Dhamma. Samatha means tolerance and Dhamma means control. And his Uparam, indifference to enjoyment. His motivation is not enjoyment. He is willing to give up sacrifice his enjoyment if it's for the benefit of everyone. Uparatam, because he is saying that I am willing to go to the forest and beg rather than fight unnecessarily. And Titiksha, he is tolerant, although so many insults have been hurled on him, so many mischief has been done to him, injustice has been done to him, still is willing to tolerate it if it is for the all-round benefit. And he is tolerating the dualities. He is willing to accept success and failure or profit, loss, fame, infamy. But he is Shraddha, faith in the instruction of Sri Krishna. And thus Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Such a person will be able to solve problems in life, who is self-controlled and disciplined, who is indifferent to enjoyment. Why? He is not artificially indifferent. With the knowledge he has become indifferent, and he is tolerant towards dualities and who has faith in the instructions of Krishna. He can solve the problems. Then, seeing this qualification of Arjuna, then Krishna smiled and spoke to the grief-stricken Arjuna in the midst of both the army. So, why he is smiling? Because his friend Gudakesha had chosen to become a disciple. Yet he suppressed his smile and at once assumed the role of a guru and talked with gravity. So, Krishna, yayatamam prapadyanti. As you surrender unto me, I reciprocate. Now Krishna, when Arjuna was treating him like a friend, he acted like a friend. Now he's treating him like a guru. So now Krishna assumes the role of a guru. What does he do? Does he sympathize with Arjuna? No, he chastises his disciple. Sometimes we see the coach is very strict with the student, and that is good. And afterwards, when the athlete or someone he comes victorious, he says, "My coach was very strict with me, very harsh with me, and that's what made me win this medal," or something like that. Rishikesha was previously controlled by the words of Arjuna out of love for him, And now he became the controller of Arjuna's mind, again out of love for the benefit of Arjuna. Just like the parents, sometimes they are very kind to the child and they are very strict with the child. So now this, we quickly go through the remaining section, which is basically Jnana, Sankhya, the analysis of the body and soul and matter and spirit. Now Krishna addresses the first concern of Arjuna, due to which he didn't want to fight. Arjuna earlier felt compassionate towards the fighters of both parties, and Lord Krishna instructs Arjuna to give up unnecessary lamentation. In other words, don't try to hold on to something which you cannot maintain forever. Instead, you hold on to something which is permanent. By understanding that the spirit soul is eternal and the material body is perishable, and encourages him to fight. These three things he is mainly telling, that the soul is permanent, the body is temporary, and you have to perform your duty of now. So Ashonchanyanva Shochastvam Prajnavadam Chabhashate Gatasun Agatasum Cha Nanu Shochanti Pandita. What is the defect in Arjuna that Krishna is pointing out? Ashochan Anva Shochastvam. You are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Prajnavadam Chabhashate. At the same time, you are speaking as if you are very learned. Gatasun Agatasun, sir. That is Gatasun, Agatasun is the living or dead. Na shochanti, nanu shochanti pandita. The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. You are mourning for what is not worthy of grief while speaking learned words. So straight away he is pointing out what is the problem. Arjuna was not wise because he argued that Dharma Shastra's religious principles is greater than Artha Shastra's politics or sociology. So there are different scriptural guidances, just like the medical books are there, law books are there. But we should know which is superior and which is inferior. So he has become confused. He has become topsy-turvy, his intelligence. But he did not know that Jnana Shastra, knowledge of matters, soul, and the supreme controller of both is even greater. He has misplaced his priorities or the importance for the different instructions. There should be no lamentation for the destruction of the gross body, since it is inevitable. Something cannot be changed. Don't try to change it. And something which does not change, again, that also you cannot change it. You have to accept it. Subtle body, since it is indestructible, the gross body changes. So gross body, it is in the destruction of the gross body, you should not lament because it's inevitable. And the subtle body, anyhow, it is not, even the gross body, that is the 5 elements, the body is made of 5 elements, that can be destroyed by the subtle body, mind, intelligence, ego, that is indestructible. But the soul is also eternal. Even the subtle body, at some point, it has to be given up, but the soul remains. Now, further he goes on to say, Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayam atah param. Natvevaham natu jatunasam. Never was there a time when I did not exist. And natvam neme janadipa, nor you, nor all these kings. Nachaiva na bhavishyama, nor in the future, sarve vayam atah param, shall any of us cease to be. Krishna is the supreme eternal amongst all the eternal beings and is the maintainer of all individual living entities, both in their conditioned and liberated states. Now Arjuna might argue, although the soul is eternal, body is related to the soul and thus becomes an object of affection. Even though you say it is temporary, it is still related to the soul, so how can I give it up? One's motives who are connected to that body also become dear. One's relatives who are connected to the body also. So when their bodies perish, there will certainly be lamentation. Although you say it is temporary, still it is related to the permanent. So how can I give it up? Then Krishna says, Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara tata tehantara pratir dhirat tatra muhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So we see, supposing you're watching a movie, that time you each film by film, if you see, there is some change in the film. So like that, this body, its changes are imperceptible, but is nevertheless changing. If you look at your photographs some 10 years back and now or in the future, it will be totally different. This change you cannot perceive on a day-to-day basis, but over a longer period of time you can see. Similarly, at the time of death, you immediately acquire another body which you cannot see, but it is there. So that is said to be a sober person. The analogy is given as embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. This is what we normally see. The soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Now, Dhira, who is a Dhira, is a sober person who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul, and the nature, both material and spiritual. So, how is this change of body is happening? Because the body is the matter, the soul is spirit, and there's a super soul. A combination of these three things only, the bodily changes are happening. One may rejoice the changes of the body only as one gets a new body. Normally, if you change your dress, you don't lament. If you get a new dress, you freely want to give up the old dress. So why you are lamenting the change of a body when it is good? Changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering according to one's work in life. Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, will surely get spiritual bodies or at least heavenly bodies. So in either case, there is no need to lament. You are thinking that Bhishma and Drona will they die, and that's the end of it. But you don't know that once they die, they will get a superior body, which they can either enjoy or suffer. So Arjuna might argue, but still I am attached to their current bodies and lament due to separation from them. Thus my senses and mind are burning. So whatever be the case, he's thinking I am concerned about the present, and this is what is more important to me. So then Krishna says, tolerate the temporary dualities. Tolerate means you should understand that whatever is there today will be lost, and whatever you lost will eventually get it back in some other form. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna shuka dukkada agamapayino nityastam titiktyasva bharata. O son of Kunti, senses experiencing the sense objects. Matra sparsha. Matra means I am seeing something, smelling something, tasting, touching, and hearing. But they produce senses of cold and heat. The moment you see something, immediately mentally you analyze, oh, I like it, I don't like it, it is good, bad. The mind starts analyzing like this only. Like the winter and summer are happiness and distress. Shitoshna shuka dukkeshu. That is Shita Ushna means summer and winter. Shuka dukkha means happiness, distress. The mind immediately starts analyzing in this way only. Whatever you see, smell, taste, and touch. Agama apayino nityas. Their appearance and disappearance. In other words, the mind will sometimes say this is good, and next moment it will say it's bad. So tam titikshasya bharata. One must learn to tolerate them, O son of Bharata. Then tolerate, why we should tolerate? One has to execute his duty despite climatic inconveniences. Similarly, a Kshatriya has to fight dutifully even if it is with some friend or relative. Just like an analogy is given, sometimes in the summer season, the housewife does not hesitate to go to the kitchen which is too hot, or a person does not hesitate to take bath in the cold season. So Arjuna is called Kaunte and Bharata, indicating the greatness of his heritage from his father's side, mother's side, respectively. A great heritage brings great responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties, therefore he cannot avoid fighting. What you have acquired, you should not throw it away. The equanimity is the eligibility of liberation. Why you should learn to tolerate? When you learn to tolerate, you can solve bigger problems in life. Yam hita na vyatayantyete purusham purusharshaba shamadukka sukam dhiram somrutattvaya kalpate. So here word is somrutattvaya kalpate. You become eligible for liberation. For best among men, Arjuna, a person who has not disturbed and is equal in both happiness and distress, is patient. And is patient. Here it says shamadukka sukam dhiram. Dhiram means patient. Because he can see the longer picture and he becomes following one's dharma, duty leads to jnana, knowledge. So even if you are struggling with something, through that struggle you will get some knowledge, and from which you are able to solve further problems, mukti. After which there is no compliance to follow these rules. Initially you may have to struggle, but after some time you will need not go through the same struggle again. So that is the point. The seers who, am I only telling this? No, the seers of the truth, Tattva Darshina, they realize the conclusion. What is that? There's no permanent existence for the material body, asat, and no change for the eternal soul. These are facts of life which you cannot change, that the soul is eternal and the body is temporary. So, nashato vidyato bhavo, na bhavo vidyate shada. Vidyata means the learned. Nasato, asato means impermanent. Vidyate bhavo, the learned know what is impermanent. And na bhavo vidyate satah. Satah means eternal. They know what is eternal, what is temporary. Ubayoropi drishtontas tvanayo tattva darshana. Who have seen it in truth, they have realized it, they have experienced it. Ubaya. Material was, the body changes every moment by the actions or reactions of different cells. You see in our body also constantly the cells are changing. Why? Because based on what we did, what is happening in the body right now, that influences the change next. But the soul remains the same despite the changes of body and mind. The soul actually does not have a relation with the subtle or gross material body. These things are happening independently, although it seems to be happening together. And their products like lamentation and bewilderment. So although the body and the mind are going through some lamentation and bewilderment, that is not applicable to the soul. This relation is only due to ignorance or misidentification of the soul with the body. Just like you're watching a movie and then you start crying or laughing. Actually, it has nothing to do with you. It's only related to what is happening on the screen. But when you identify with that, you experience like you're experiencing in a dream. The soul is indestructible, Avinashi. The soul pervades the entire body. How do I know that the soul? Then Krishna explains scientifically that you can perceive the soul by the presence of consciousness. All over your body, you are conscious. If I touch your feet or you touch your hair also, you are able to perceive it. Or you take a medicine, the medicine goes throughout the body. So with this, soul pervades the entire body, is perceived as individual consciousness. And how do you know my soul is individual? Because I know about my body. I cannot know about others' body or what is going on others' mind. So therefore, they must be also individuals. No one can destroy the imperishable Abhyaya soul. Now, what is the difference between the material body and spirit soul? What's the time? 7:30. Shorten it. So, Antavanta imejeha nitya shokta sharirinaha anashino aprameyasya. The material body is perishable, the embodied soul is eternal, that soul is indestructible and immeasurable. The soul you cannot ascribe a size. If the soul is in the elephant body or if it's an ant body, both is the same. How it can be the same? That is a detailed subject. We'll see gradually. Tasmad Yuddhasva Bharata. Therefore, fight or descendant of Bharata. Just like the seed of a huge banyan tree is also same size as the seed of any other plant, but it has been composed in such a way that one grows big and one grows small. The soul is essentially the same in all the bodies. The soul doesn't kill or get killed. Nayam hantina hanyate. That is how it is designed. It cannot cause any harm, nor can anyone cause harm. Neither he who thinks the soul is killer, nor he who thinks it is killed is in knowledge. And what is the size of the soul? The analogy is given of 1/10,000 part of the tip of the hair. Shvetashvara Upanishad says. In other words, you cannot measure the size of the soul. Normally, if you want to measure something, you have to have a property similar to that. If you want to measure temperature, then the mercury should have some properties by which you can measure the temperature. But since the soul has different properties from the body, you cannot ascribe a size to it. So they give an example that even if you imagine it is smaller than the smallest. So, and where is it? It is situated in the heart, because once the soul leaves the body, the heart stops. So that is an indication that although the soul, you cannot ascribe a place to it, you can, just like you cannot see an electron, but by its effect, you can say that it is there. Similarly, the soul, you can say it is in the heart by seeing that the heart stops when the soul leaves the body. And beyond measurement, and cannot even be seen by enemy, to say nothing of being. First of all, you have to see it. Just like the virus, we are not able to see it and we are not able to catch it or to kill it. So similarly, we cannot see the soul. So where's the question of catching the soul or killing the soul? So what is killed is only the material body. Thus Arjuna is, so just like the famous quoting is the Aristotle or someone. So when he has given Shamlock poison, he said, first you kill my soul or catch me, then you can think about killing me. Thus Arjuna saw neither the killer. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचिन्नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. The soul has neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, he will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing and primeval. He is not killed when the body is killed. So these are all facts which he is stating. Especially he says he has not come into being, will not come into being, and does not come into being. So what does it mean? So the body only goes through the 6 changes, whereas the changes which are happening in the body do not applicable to the soul. What are the 6 changes in the body? Any material object, has a creation. It comes into existence, birth, and then it stays for some time. It grows and produces some byproducts, like we produce children. Then we dwindle, become old, and then we die. So this is the applicable only to the body or any material object, but the soul doesn't undergo these changes. And no one can kill the soul. Oh Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, immutable, kill anyone or cause anyone to be killed? So we have this experience when the Hiroshima bomb was dropped. They thought that Japan is perished, but we see Japan is such an advanced country, or Germany also, they suffered heavily during the Second World War, but still it became an advanced nation, which means the soul cannot be killed. So the analogy is given, Vasam chijirnani yata vihaya navani gridnati naro parani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyati samyati navani tehi. As a person puts on old garments and accepts new garments, the soul similarly gives up old and useless bodies and attains new bodies. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chainam kledayantyapo, na shoshayati marutaha. So these are all qualities of the soul. One cannot cut by weapons, cannot be burned by fire, cannot be moistened by water. Generally, any material object can be killed by, affected by, cut by weapons, burned by fire, or moistened by water. It cannot be withered by wind, is unbreakable and cannot be burnt. In other words, you cannot split the soul. Although we have twins, they are different souls. Is insoluble. In other words, you cannot combine 2 souls also. They cannot be dried by air. Is everlasting, exists everywhere and unchangeable, which means the soul can go anywhere. And immovable sense, its properties cannot be changed. And eternally same, imperishable, inconceivable, which still we cannot understand. Although it is so important, we cannot understand it. Immutable, without changes, knowing to be. In other words, these are all facts which you have to accept, like you accept some axioms. You should not grieve for the body. Okay, we'll stop here and then take any comments or questions, and we'll complete the remaining chapter next week. So here is a question here. How did Arjuna know that Krishna? Okay, I think we should ask. As per Bhagavan, a Kshatriya should not cry, a Brahmin should not fight, but emotions are same for all castes. Does the Bhagavan also discriminate among devotees that a Brahmin should be more devoted, Shudra should be only material activities? Why does the Bhagavan insist on caste so much? See, what is according to our nature, and we have some natures and abilities. That is something we have acquired by our past activities. So that God does not interfere with that. What God is saying is, immaterial of what your position you are still the soul. Whether you are in the body of a Brahmana, or Kshatriya, or Vaishya, or Shudra, Grihastha, Brahmachari, or Anaprastha, Sannyasi, that is immaterial. You are still the soul, and that the nature of the soul doesn't change. In other words, the nature of the soul is to do devotion. That you have to continue irrespective of what you are doing to maintain the body and mind. How you maintain your body and mind, that is subjective. Just like each house, we have a house. Each of us will maintain or have a house according to our what money we have or how we like it. Without that, we have to make the choice. irrespective of which house you are staying, you can still do activities that are common to all of us, just like all of us are in different places, but still we are discussing on this topic. So Krishna does not discriminate like that. Krishna is saying, in fact, he's saying that in whatever position you may be, you remain in that position, do what is required for that, and at the same time, you do your devotion. So for Arjuna, it was to fight. In our case, he is saying what is right for you that you do to maintain your body. At the same time, do the devotion. In case of Arjuna, his devotion was to fulfill the plan of Krishna. The next question is from Manoj. What is the meaning of higher planet? So actually, higher and lower is in terms of consciousness. Sometimes you are in a best place, but you are feeling miserable, or you're in a very hellish place, but you're feeling happy. So although to some extent the places are fixed higher and low, but they are fixed in terms of consciousness. Even if you go deeply into the philosophy of science, they have analyzed that what you see around you is actually depending on your consciousness. So the higher and lower are in terms of consciousness. Immediately the world around you changes according to your consciousness. Is it actually going to some higher planet or going to a higher conscience in our own body? Yeah, it is going to a higher conscience. But so for that, accordingly, the body changes. The body going to higher planet means you have to worship the demigods, and just like if you want to go to USA, you have to appeal to the American embassy. Similarly, it's indirectly like appealing to the president of that country. So if you want to go to these higher planets, you have to follow the rules and regulations prescribed by them. And then they make us eligible to come to their planet for different types of enjoyment or suffering. So how did Arjuna know that Krishna is the most superior? Yeah, that we will see in the 10th chapter also. But Krishna, there Arjuna says that Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, because he is eternally related to Krishna, number one. Number two, he has heard from authorities like Narada, Sita, Vyasa. Not only that, by this time, Krishna had demonstrated his superiority, because this battle happened towards the end of the Arjuna, Krishna's presence. So by that time, Krishna had demonstrated his superiority. So Arjuna was well aware of it, and not only that, he had heard from authorities also. Now another question is from Shrikant. Eternal soul is Sat, right? Sat means yes, eternal. The soul is eternal. Asat means the temporary or the body. It's written as Asat in the presentation. No, we have to see. I don't know whether
it is there in the 9th slide.
Okay, it doesn't matter. So
it's a mistake, but okay. I mean,
so then, being bodily platform, Hanuman and Ravan, how can they fly, Prabhuji? Yeah. So her question is how Hanuman could fly. Yes, but we think they have a body like ours. That is the problem. Even God, Krishna, he has a body. It looks like us, but it is not. Just like a president also seems to be like us, he is also looking like a human, but he is able to do much more than us. That's a crude analogy, but the fact is that Hanuman's body and our body, they look similar, but they are known as Kim Purusha. Kim Purusha Loka means they look like Purushas, humans, but Kim Purusha, what kind of human? So they are from that Kim Purusha Loka, and so they have bodies, they look like human, but they are not human. So that's why he could do superhuman things. And Ravana also, he had attained the mystic powers, just like people are able to fly in aircraft, which we cannot do. The pilot is there, he is able to drive the aircraft, but if I put me in the pilot seat, I will crash it, or even
so here where Hanuman, like he said, was Kim Purush, and he was also the son of Pavan, the wind god. So the powers that Hanuman had, we cannot imagine any ordinary person to have. Ravan similarly was son of a Brahman, and he had, by doing a lot of meditation and austerities, he had gained some supernatural powers. He was also devotee of Shiva, and he had got some supernatural powers. Ravan was not flying himself. Ravan was flying the Pushpak Viman, right?
And he also stole it from Kubera.
Okay. So the next question is from Sir. If I don't know whether it is relevant or not to ask, but wanted to ask. I have a goal in my life which has probability less of getting a success, but I have a confidence in me that if I go, I may definitely get it. But people surround me feel that I should have a plan B before getting to my goal. Can you show me light to come out of this confusion, sir?
So as we saw today also, the success and failure is not the main objective. Sometimes by failing also we can achieve something. There are so many examples, just like you're doing a research and that research may come out positive outcome or they may be negative, but the broader perspective, some people accept that also. At least we found out that this is not possible, or this is wrong. To find something is wrong is also a good thing. So like that, success and failure are not the determining factors. And what is the second part of the question?
1 minute. The second part of the question is people around me feel that I should have a plan B before getting to my goal. Can you show me light to come out of this confusion?
You can say both yes and no, because if you have plan B, then your focus is lost. Just like if Krishna had given the second option to Arjuna, he would have become confused. So then Krishna told him very clearly, this is the only option for you. So like that, in one sense, it is better to have only one option and not two options, because then your attention becomes divided. That second option will come on its own. You don't have to look for it from the beginning itself. When you fail in the first option, then you think about the second option.
That is very true.
Yeah.
If you want to achieve something great, then there is no second option.
Actually,
you have to go at it with full throttle. Sorry.
These options are always there. It's not that suddenly they come up. Maybe at that moment you start thinking about it, but options are always there in life. But if you focus on one of them, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Purunandana, Krishna actually prepares Arjuna for this one decision. Now, during the course of Bhagavad Gita, the discussion goes in different directions, whether you can do Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, all that. But finally, Krishna brings him to the point to accept that this bhakti is the only way. Similarly, it looks like we have many options, but if you go in all those options, exercise, you'll go nowhere. Just like we have a goal when you're playing football or something, they have kept one goal. They could have kept a goal 1, goal 2, either this goal or that goal. No, they have said just one goal only, no other option. So like that, if we fix this bhakti helps us to eliminate all these unwanted options and fix ourselves in one. Even if we fail, it's better to fail in the right goal rather than to succeed with the wrong goal. So that's what Krishna is trying to tell to Arjuna, that if you choose a path, it's the right path. Even if you fail in this path, no problem. But better than keeping two options and succeeding in the second option.
If you fail, then the entire process of going through option 1 and failing in that will teach you and give you the way for option 2. Yes. There's no need to keep a plan B from the beginning. There is one more question. My long time doubt is that does the Dashavatar of Lord Vishnu is a real happening or a story?
So these are all factual. So if it's a story, it has no benefit actually. Story is for entertainment. But that's the unfortunate thing. People think these are stories, but these are facts. And that's why, because they are written in the scriptures. If they are stories, then the scriptures would not have continued for so many generations or millennia. There are many stories we have heard of, but they come and go. But this Dashavatara, it is eternal. And not only it doesn't mean that Lord has only 10 avatars. These are the 10 principal ones which we are very prominent. But the Lord has unlimited avatars. And it's also explained who is the source of all the avatars and why these avatars appear. That will come in the 4th chapter. So they are factual. Even if you want to be analyzing in the material point of view, just like we say from the fishes, the Matsya avatara, first fish, then we have the Matsya tortoise, So even if evolution, if you see the evolution theory also, the lower life forms evolved higher life forms. Like Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Nisimha, Vamana, all this you can see, there's also one way gradation.
Okay, so the continuation of the question is that how Dashavatara is linked to Vedas.
Vedas are broadly four. Remember, these avatars are described in the Puranas. Vedas, we have four Vedas, that is Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda. But supplement to the Vedas is the Puranas, Upanishads, Itihasas like Ramayana, Mahabharata. So in the Puranas, just like you have a theory and then the implementation of the theory. So these Vedas are basically theoretical, but these Puranas are showing the histories, case histories of how, based on those fundamental principles, how we can experience God and how he relates to the devotees in this material world. So all that is given in the Puranas.
So there are no further questions.
Okay, so actually every day we are doing this.
Okay, 1 minute. One more question is there. Is Matsya the first avatar? I heard as per Bhagavad, Varaha is the first. I have not read Bhagavad, but I heard.
Actually, there is no first and second or 10th like that in this. Just like Monday is the first day of the week, but doesn't mean that is the first. It is a convention. So like that in convention, it may appear first, but as far as God's avatars are concerned, there's no, because they're eternal. So it just like the sun is rising in the east and setting in the west, it doesn't mean it's actually rising there only. It's a convention, we say that it's in the east and this is the west. Similarly, there's no sequence in which the Lord has to appear, although he may choose to do like that.
So next question is, from Puranas only these Vedas are derived?
Now, as I said, Veda Vyasa compiled it. In fact, knowledge is nothing, it comes at a certain time. Knowledge is always knowledge, especially the Vedic knowledge or whatever. This knowledge is existing forever. But Veda Vyasa, because Kali Yuga people tend to forget, he had to write it down. And first he wrote the Vedas, then he wrote the Puranas, Samhitas, Itihasas, and Upanishads. All this to elaborate, just like you don't elaborate everything in one book. You write one book for one particular purpose, then you write another book to highlight some other thing. So like that, these are different purposes they were written, but all for the same purpose of establishing our relationship, sambandha with God, and how to act in that relationship, that is abhideya, and what is the purpose of the relationship, how to develop love of God, prayojana. So this is the main purpose of any scripture, sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. So that is fulfilled through many, just like you have poetry is there, prose is there, non-detail is there, grammar is there, composition is there. Through all this we get knowledge. So different ways of presenting knowledge that is useful to us.
Right. So done.
Okay, so as I told, next week we will continue the remaining section of the second chapter, but in between the week also, Monday to Friday, we will be taking verse based, maybe a few set of verses in each day. So that also you're welcome to attend. We are sending the messages. For example, tomorrow we'll be doing first 11 verses or something like that. So this will be done 7 to 8 in English and Hindi. Thank you very much. We'll end here.
Hare Krishna. Acharya Purnisa Mataji has raised hand.
Yes.
I will just unmute her. Mataji, you can ask. Jafrunisa Mataji, you can ask.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी।
Hare Krishna.
माता जी थोड़ा मेरा तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, थोड़ा प्रे करो ना मेरे लिए।
Zarur Mataji, Zarur. So we will chant Maha Mantra once for Jafrunisa Mataji and all patients, whoever is connected to us. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please send us a message. We'll follow up. We will call you after this session. Thank you very much. We'll meet you tomorrow or next week.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Shall I end the session?
Yes.